All right. Okay, we are live on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitch, on Instagram. Happy Friday, everybody. Hope you're having a wonderful day. I hope your week has been good. It's been a busy one here. Recovering from the International Trombone Festival, getting a lot of new things rolling along. I see some great people joining here. What's up, Jay? What's up, DJ? What's up, John? Wonderful, wonderful. It's Francisco. Some people joining on YouTube. Hello. It's Friday, July the 23rd, 2021. And if you haven't been following along, exciting times from July. I've been reposting all of the Christmas in July from last year, which is all kind of jazz trombone basics, jazz music basics, like talking about how to play over a C7, or talking about how to create a resolution with over dominant chords, with bebop scales, with diminished scales, with altered scales, all these kind of fundamental things in jazz language, improvisation, all that kind of stuff. All of that is being reposted, and those videos are all on a playlist. If you just search Christmas in July, Nick Finzer, on YouTube, you can find them all, but they're also on my Instagram, and I've been reposting them not every day, but kind of most days throughout the month. And let's see, since I've seen you last, let's see what's been happening. Very exciting is that one of the UNT students this year, Jack Courtwright, was the winner of the ITF's J.J. Johnson Jazz Competition. He won that Friday night, so I saw everyone on here on Friday afternoon, and then Friday evening that was announced, so congratulations to Jack on that. And we're just starting to put together some performance dates, potentially some tour dates for the YouTubes in the fall semester. I just started talking with some folks about that, so looking forward to getting more happening there. If you want to host a jazz trombone ensemble from UNT, we would love to have that information and try to find a way to get to you, get to your school, to work with your students, all that kind of thing. Our jazz trombone ensemble, the YouTubes. We recorded an album in May, so we're looking at getting that finished up and getting that out to the world. And so that's going to be great. So if you're interested in doing something with that, do let me know. Send me an email or something. So let's see, what else is going on? I think, the Christmas in July, we got Jack, we got the YouTubes happening, we got the album happening. And next Friday, I have a really big announcement. So next Friday is going to be a really great version of the show. We're going to have a special guest on the stream. And so it's going to be really exciting. And I'm excited to, I can't really say what it is, but it's in regards to Jazz Trombone Day. And so that's going to be happening in the fall again. That's going to be happening in, let's see, it'll be November the 20th. We'll have our competition. We'll have in-person finals for the competition, and a lot of exciting things. So we'll talk about that more next week, but if you want to get all the info on the 2021 Jazz Trombone Day, make sure to tune in next Friday, 1 p.m., and we'll talk about it. But of course, this is a Q&A session, so feel free to drop in some questions, and we'll get those rolling for you, and getting some things happening. So let's see. Somebody's been checking out the Jazz Trombone Christmas in July. That's awesome. I'm really glad that they've been helpful. So if you want to check them out, just search Christmas in July, Nick Finzer. And they're all from last year, but we're reposting them now. They're all pretty evergreen things. So talking about some stuff that's applicable now and forever into the future. That's for sure. John is here. Thanks, John. Gave a little clap for Jack. DJ asked if I've been writing any new small group tunes. I have an announcement that I can't share anything about, but I will be. I'm not right now, but I will be. I don't know when I can announce what I can announce, but I will be doing that in the next couple weeks. What's up, man with the horn? Thanks for dropping by. Let's see. Here's a question from Brian on YouTube. So if you're on YouTube, what's up, YouTube? It says, which song do you think that you've listened to the most in your lifetime? Which have you played the most? That is a good question. What's up, Jay? You can drop your question in the chat. Let me see here. The song that I've played the most, or listened to the most? That's a good question. I mean, I go on a deep dive in long times. Like there's times I just listen to things on repeat. Bright Side's Life album from Pat Metheny was one that was on repeat a lot. The Elastic Band from Joshua Redman, that was on repeat a lot as a student. But I mean, JJ in person. I mean, I know that whole record. I've listened to that so many times, and since I use it a lot for teaching too, I think I've heard that a lot of times, like Mysterioso and what is this thing called Love and Laura, all of those things, probably a ton for sure. I don't know. That's an interesting question. I don't know if I could tell you definitively what I'm listening to the most. What's up, Alton? Alton, if you don't know Alton, he was also at the ITF last week. He has a new single on our imprint Next Level. So Ozan in Music is obviously my record label, but he has a new single called Desnudo out today. So if you want some new trombone music to check out Alton Sinclair and his new track Desnudo. It's with his trio, and so good to see him last week along with his quintet mate Chris Glassman, great bass trombonist. If you don't know him, yeah, the beard. This is called I Lost My Razor, and I have to go to the pharmacy right after this to get a new one. See, what you can see is that, it comes in all splotchy. So if I keep letting it go, it just gets gross and nasty looking. Not a good look for me. What's up, Daniel Torres? So anyway, that's what's happening over here. Okay, so we're caught up. We're caught up on the comments that are coming in so far. So I was talk about a couple things. If you're interested in going deeper, if you have enjoyed the work with those Christmas in July videos, there's more stuff in the virtual studio. If you didn't know, I do a virtual studio where I post a new lesson every single week, and we haven't missed a week yet since 2017. So you can do the math. We'll be approaching 200 lessons pretty soon, and so there's a lot of stuff in there. But I also recently launched a composition course, a rhythm changes course this year, and I'm just going in. I'm going for it, trying to get all the courses happening. I'm working on a drone course that I'll hopefully drop and sometime this fall, and also a Curtis Fuller transcription course. So all these things, get away from me in terms of more things that I want to do than time I have to do them. But if anyone is in Massachusetts right now, I just got a call to do something up in Rockport, Massachusetts tomorrow. I'll be playing with the great alto saxophonist Alexa Tarantino. So if anyone's around or sees this between now and then, I'll be up in Massachusetts tomorrow, Saturday, July 24th, to do a concert up there with her. I think Stephen Feifke, great pianist, is on the concert, and I'm not sure who else is in the band, but it'll be cool, and it's a free show. So here's a question from John. Did you ever have to develop an elevator pitch for yourself earlier in your career? Yeah, in terms of pitching venues or pitching for festivals and things like that, having a description and having something to go off of, like for doing that, for pitching for gigs, yes. And so basically you want to establish, in my mind at least, like, who are you? Why should they care? A little bit about what it is you're asking, and kind of limit it to a kind of a short message, so that, like you said, like an elevator pitch, like, who are you, what are you about, and why should they care, So I usually would say, my name is Nick Finzer, I'm a jazz trombonist in New York City, I do X, Y, Z, I'm working on this new project, here's a link to one video of this project, and we're trying to book a concert the week of, whatever week it might be, and kind of leave it there. and because the longer of the elevator pitch, the least effective. So you want them to, know what you're about, but not give them too much information that they don't read it or they just delete your email or whatever. So, getting that first amount of social proof is kind of the hardest thing. That's why you move to a scene, a big city, and try to get that social proof. Working with people and playing gigs and just getting to know people, and so people trust you and they trust your musicianship and they trust your what you have to offer. So that's part of it. All right, Bro the Kid, what's up? Allison, what's up? Thanks for joining us today. Word folder, what's happening? Like I said, this is our Friday weekly Q&A, so feel free to drop in any questions in the chat, send them as a DM, whatever. Here's a good question. Is transcribing the only way to learn language? No. You can play transcriptions from a book. That's another way to start to learn language. You can listen. That's the best way, right? You have to get the sound of the language of jazz in your head, into your internal mind's ear, as it were, like to be really, really in your head, that concept, you have to have the language. You got to hear what JJ would have played, what Curtis would have played, what Slide would have played, at least that's what I'm trying to do, trying to hear that language, hear what Bud Powell or Bird would have played, at least the rhythmic with the flow, the rhythmic ideas, the flow of the ideas, that language. So you could transcribe as much as you want, but if you don't internalize that feeling of the language, it's never going to happen, So it's not the only way. You can do that. You can listen. You can play transcriptions. You can look at books. There's certain books that have certain tools. But they're just that. They're tools. But they're not going to show you how to play them. That's the thing. You can get unlimited books, but the books don't show you how to play it. The language is both what, the notes, and how. It's just like you can speak another foreign language with a terrible accent and nobody will understand what you're saying. It's the same way with jazz, because you could learn all the language in the world, but if you say it with a terrible accent and it doesn't sound like jazz, it's not going to translate as an effective piece of language. So it's just one step. Sorry. But transcribing is a great way to do it, because then you're learning the language, you're internalizing the language, you're regurgitating the language to match exactly the how of what that person is playing, the how, like how the notes are being played. Alton, when is the NF trombone model coming out? To Jason, I don't know, Jason, let's make it happen. Thanks, Alton. Keep bothering Jason until it happens. All right, I see your question, DJ. I'm just going to grab one from YouTube, and then we'll come back to the Instagram questions. Brian asks, what would be your dream Duke Ellington orchestra if you could choose from anyone who's ever played in his band? Well, I mean, there's some people. I'm not going to sit and go through the whole orchestra, but Lawrence Brown for sure, Tricky Sam for sure, Tyree Glenn, or maybe Tyree Glenn would be good. There's so many cats, but definitely Lawrence Brown and Tricky Sam and Juan Teasel. That's the classic section, so I guess it would be them. You got to have Cat Anderson in there. You got to have Johnny Hodges. You got to have Ben Webster. You got to have Jimmy Blanton. All the classic guys. Paul Gonsalves. So basically, the band as it was. I think that's how I hear it in my head. Jimmy Hamilton. I don't know. So just the cats. Ray Nance. All the cats that were in the band. I don't think I would redo it. Here's a question from DJ. Would it be better to host a free Zoom masterclass if you're trying to establish yourself, or do you think it's better to upload a long video on YouTube for anyone to check out on their own time? Well, both of those things create different challenges, and I think the answer is to do both. What I would do is do a free Zoom masterclass where I would record it, not in Zoom, but I would record it like right now. I've got this Instagram going, I've got this camera going, but it also records the file, right? So I would have the stream that goes to Zoom, and then I would have a video recording what I'm saying, and then I could create an edited version of that for YouTube. So I try to always do multiple things with a piece of content or with an event, and so I would have the Zoom masterclass, record it, and have it be on the topic that you want to make the YouTube video on. That way you can have both at the same time, because the limitations obviously are with Zoom. You are picking a time and the people have to be available at that time. They have to log on and they feel maybe compelled to be there. And maybe people are like, I don't want to reserve 6 p.m. on Wednesday to come to DJ's class. But if you keep doing it and show up at the same time regularly, say every Monday at 5 p.m. there's a trombone hang on Zoom. Here's the link, post it all over social, and then you can go and put the edited versions on YouTube. That way new people can find you, and then you can have a link to like sign up for your like weekly class or whatever. Just kind of like this. So I do this every week. We talk about what we talk about. We have the live stream, the video gets edited, it gets reposted the next week. People can check out whatever questions they might want to check. Sometimes they'll show up on Friday, sometimes they'll go check out other materials, sometimes they'll come to a gig, sometimes they'll see you at a trombone festival and say what's up. Sometimes they'll want to get a lesson. All those different things happen from just showing up and being present with the community and just being around. It's just like being around in a scene, like in New York, going to the sessions, going to the clubs, playing gigs. In the wider internet world, you got to show up. You have to be here. You have to post content. You have to have events. You have to do live streams. You don't have to do any of them, but they all help in adding up to your overall web presence. So I guess the answer is just both, DJ, the short answer. Okay, what's up, Peter? What's up, Trevor? Got all the trombone people on here. Nahu, what's happening? All the trombone players hanging out. Very cool. How do you feel about valve trombone? Is it cheating? No, it's not cheating. It's a different instrument. It has a different sound. Similar register. But then again, the bari sax is in a similar register. Excuse me. Just like French horn is in a slightly higher tessitura than the tenor trombone, but it's totally a different instrument, different sound. So that's how I view the valve trombone. I love Bob Brookmeyer. There's not that many valve trombonists, Bob Brookmeyer and Juan Teasel come to mind first. Obviously, then there's people now that are more like playing valves, but it's like, what do you call it, bass trumpet instead of valve trombone. One, because it's smaller, I think. Like having a full-size trombone and a full-size valve trombone is going to take up a lot of space. So for me, I feel like that's probably part of why why that's not a thing. But second, it also has a different sound, again, than the valve trombone. The valve trombone has a little bit of like a nasally kind of sound sometimes, not for everybody, but for sometimes. But it's cool. My student who graduated, his name's Trenton, he hangs out on here sometimes. He played valve trombone a good amount. He's recorded valve trombone on the new YouTube's album, which is exciting. So yeah, it's a different instrument. It's not cheating. It has its own kind of challenges, All right, here's a question on YouTube. If you were asked to play a gig on bass trombone, would you do it? It depends what the gig is, but probably yes. It depends what it is. If it's a doubling gig, for sure. If it's just bass trombone and it's like the loudest, like movie score Hans Zimmer, I would probably say no, because I wouldn't be able to do it justice, But in general, sure, yeah, I'll play a bass trombone gig. But I generally haven't been saying yes to gigs where it's just like, here, play this part, It's generally, I have been weeding out those type of gigs, and I want to play gigs where they want, me and my musicianship and improvisation and all that stuff. Of course, I'm still want to play with great people, so I'm going to say yes to a lot of different types of gigs, but what standard do you know that you bet most of your friends don't know? What standard do I know that most of my friends don't know? It depends who we're talking about, because I have some friends that pretty much know every song. So, especially the bass players in New York, they know just about every tune. So that's a kind of it's kind of an impossible question to ask. A tune, I don't know if it counts as a standard really because of it, but something that I learned recently that I think people don't know that I would want to play, I could tell you that. Conception is one that some people don't know that I like to play. And then Bud Powell by Chick Corea. People don't really know that, but I like to play Matrix I like to play. It's kind of like a blues, but you have to kind of know how to play it, you know. There's some figures and hits and stuff, but I don't think that those don't really count as standards. And then about, half the time people know I love to play Billy Strayhorn's Flowers of Love Thing. Sometimes people don't know that one, but no one in particular. Like some people know it, some people don't know it, and that's totally fine. That's why you have to have a good repertoire of things. I just started playing more recently. I played it last week at the Trombone Festival. Star-Crossed Lovers, a Duke Ellington tune, probably also partially or mostly influenced by Billy Strayhorn too. But so Star-Crossed Lovers, I just started playing more. It's going to be on an album coming out this fall. Somebody said bebop and then a bunch of Russian characters, so I don't really know what you're saying there. But hello, welcome. Kaban by mail. Very cool. All right, I'm going back. John had a question, so I'm scrolling back here. Is bebop melody / harmony subversive? The more solos I transcribe, I realize Western notation falls short of capturing sound. Yeah, I mean, I agree with both of those statements. I think that they're related, but two separate statements. Yeah. So is bebop melody and harmony subversive? Yes, I think so, because there's a lot to it, and there's a lot of nuance in the way things are phrased. There's a lot of nuance in the way people play those figures. I think there's like certain isms that are like bebop centric, and then there's kind of a more general jazz language that evolved out of it that includes the hard bop and post bop and neo bop and whatever you want to call it, just like everything from 50 on through now, like all of that stuff is kind of congealed together into like a modern conception of the jazz language. And so for me that means bebop melody and harmony, but it also means other stuff. Like it also means modern stuff and all different standards and all that different kind of thing. So what's up, Luke? What's up, Tony Tromboni? What's happening? Feel free to drop in your questions here. It is, of course, our Friday Q&A session. So thanks for hanging out today. Again, I am excited about next week's class, next week's session. We're going to have a special guest on. It's going to be really a lot of fun. So we're going to be doing that, and that'll be super cool. Here's a question from Taylor. Taylor asks, how long did it take you to feel confident in saying no to gigs that didn't pay well or just didn't think would benefit your experience? A long time. Started playing gigs when I was 15 or 16, and just maybe in the last year, I'll say the last 3 years, I've started saying no to gigs. So how long is that? How old am I now? 33. 16 to 33 is 17 years or something. Tony's loving the Christmas in July. Killing, man. Check it out. All 25 videos on YouTube. 25 days, deep dive. What's your favorite video so far, Tony? Let me know here. So it's been a long time trying to get used to saying no or not. And sometimes you say yes. So a lot of people talk about, the 3 pillars of a gig. It's like the people, the money, and the music. So sometimes you say yes for the people and the music, right? Or you say, 2 of it for the money and the music, or the money and the people, or whatever combination you want to have. But it's hard, man. At the beginning, I said yes to everything, every crappy gig forever, and I did everything. Anything that came my way, I said yes. 2 hours on the train to play for half an hour with at Brighton Beach or something, I did it. I said yes to everything. And it's been difficult to unwind that kind of mental attitude of like having to say yes all the time. That's difficult, man. Okay, Brian, what's the hardest thing you've ever had to play? The hardest thing? Oh, I know. Ken Thompson Sextet. Alan Ferber's on the record, but if you look at this up, Ken Thompson, Thompson, Sextet. He's got 1 or 2 records out. And this was like 2 years ago. Must have been fall of 19 that we went to Europe and played a bunch of shows. The hardest music I've ever had to play, hands down. It's like sort of free and sort of jazz and sort of contemporary classical all kind of roped into one. So huge intervals, fast playing, slow playing, precise playing, microtonal playing, all at once. So check that out if you want to hear the hardest stuff I've ever had to play. It's not me on the record though, it's Alan Ferber. If you don't know Alan Ferber, really amazing trombonist in New York, great arranger also. Really super nice guy too. Jared, do you play any larger bore horns? And if so, how do you combat the different feels between that and your small bore? I find issues in overblowing the upper register. Yeah, it's an interesting discussion. I've had this discussion a lot. We've, wait a minute. I'm going to come back to you, Jared. So Vasily Lowenfels. What's happening, man? Yeah, Bloomingdale. How are you? Hope you're doing good. It's always nice to see people that you know in real life on the live stream. But going back to Jared, do you ever play a large bore? So, I mean, I was just playing some large bore. I play a medium bore, right? So I play a 525. So for me to go 525 to 547, not as big of a jump as like 500 to 547. In college, I was playing a 508 Yamaha, and I was going back and forth. My first 2 years at Eastman, I was going back and forth between a Conti 88H and a Yamaha, and I go back and forth, and it's just a different sound, you know. It's different airflow, and so for me, I had to not go back and forth because going back and forth was not working well for me. I wanted to stick on one horn and get the most out of that horn. So that's what I did. I kind of stuck with a small bore for a while, but then I wasn't digging the sound of small bore as much as I dug, you know, people that were playing a larger equipment. So do I think I want to play 547 exclusively? No, that's why I play a 525, because it's the sort of the best of both worlds, where you get a little bit bigger sound and but still have that kind of flexibility and the ability to kind of really hammer it home if you need to, you know, give it that zip. But that's kind of why I play the horn that I do, because it kind of, if you push it a lot, the King, I play a King 3B plus, so if you push it a lot, it has that classic kind of King jazz trombone sound, but if you just play it like it's a larger instrument, it also can kind of have that more bigger sound, you know, so that's part of it. But yeah, to go back and forth, you got to get used to going back and forth. And you mentioned, Jared mentioned overblowing in the upper register, probably on the small horn, I would guess. But to me, the hardest thing is the slide weight, you know, like the slide weighs a different amount, and like so I throw it too far or not far enough, or it's too slow, it feels crappy, you know. So there's a couple thoughts. I don't know if that answers your question, Jared. Feel free to follow up on that, because I'd be down to dive deeper into that discussion. But Alton was asking about shedding microtonal stuff. I'm interested, but a little shy. Yeah, I didn't really shed it until I had to do it, you know. And this guy, he had a pretty clear recording of a MIDI track that he had programmed to go as far and as many cents as he wanted, sharp and flat. So it feels like you're just playing sharp or playing flat, you know, at first. I'm not super deep in that world, so I'm not like a master of the microtonal stuff, but not at all. But I have had to do it sometimes. So you got to get with the recording and just like, you know, find D, find E flat, and then you have to find halfway in between D and E flat. I know it just like kind of messes with your whole conception of the chromatic scale, but for me, the unlock to being able to hear that way was being able to hear notes like in different places in the harmony. And so what I mean is this, like, as you play the note F, if it's in the key of F, it sits in a certain place. If it's in the key of B flat, it sits in a slightly different place. If it's the key of D flat, the F sits in an entirely different place in the spectrum. You know, if it's the third versus the fifth, if it's the seventh, so in the key of G flat, that F is in a different place again. So I started trying to open myself up to hearing how one note has basically 12 different placements, you know, and so there's 12 keys, every note can fit in every key and has to get in tune, you know, all that stuff. So that helped me to start to hear how that microtonal adjustment makes it in tune, but that is what the microtone is. It's like less than a half step. So that was helpful for me in doing that. So, you know, a quick way to experience that, if you want to check it out for yourself, is go to my Get Ready routine. Just go to Spotify and go play the first track. It says a long tone. It's an F, right? And then it puts it against a bunch of different bass notes and a bunch of different harmony, so you can feel how that F is going to shift around on you. It doesn't just stay in the same place. It wants to be a little flat, a little sharp, compared to the chord that it's happening in or against. So if you want to experience that quickly, you can go over there and do that. Okay, thanks for that question, Alton. Tony Trombone says, I'm working on 251 stuff classically, training, getting into jazz and improvisation. In terms of horns, I went down to the 500 root with a valve for my jazz work. Cool. Nice. What's up, Brian Scarborough? Great Kansas City trombone player. Yeah, Tony, that sounds great, man. 500 for me is too small. I feel a little claustrophobic, but all right, Vasily. Vasily says, I have an F attachment trombone. I wash my trombone once in a while. However, it gets dirty. How do I wash it properly and then reassemble the trigger attachment without messing it up? So that's really tricky. I wouldn't take the valve apart. I wouldn't. I would clean the rest of it. You can put it in a bath. Hot water, dish soap, put it in the bath. You can let it soak. Get all that nasty stuff out of there. Use a snake. For all that stuff, I take it to a professional because I am not a person that can really take stuff apart and trust myself to put things back together correctly. So I would direct you to somebody that's super into instrument repair. Find a great repairman or woman where you are, and trust them, trust them to do it, take it apart. So I would not take apart your F attachment. There's a lot that can go wrong with that. Brian asks, have you ever been fired from a gig, walked off the bandstand? I walked off the bandstand once. Have been fired from a gig, not on the bandstand, but yes. I was fired from a gig. I got replaced by a guy that did better dance moves. So that was a thing, and I did get fired from that gig. Not fired, just like not rehired. Nothing ever is super dramatic, The one time I did walk off the bandstand, it was a little dramatic, but the gig had been going on for about 10 hours. It started at 6 and it was 4 in the morning, and I was just done. And they wanted to keep going, and I was like, nope, I am out of here. So that has happened. I walked off the bandstand then. But, okay, sorry to make sure I'm getting all these questions here. How many ruts would you say you've been in? That's a good question. I mean, I don't think I could count. They're always kind of quick, until something else comes along. For the last 7-8 months or so, I've been in a bit of a rut, I would say. Not sure what to do next, a little unclear. Everything that I had built up in my mind changed, for everybody, obviously. And just a realization of a lot of things, a lot of realities that are different than my expectation as a young musician. And it sucks, the best way to put it, is just like coming to grips with the fact that I'm 33. I'm not old yet, but I'm also not young. I'm not a young lion or whatever, still on the young side. So I'm in this middle point where it's you're not young, but you're also not a veteran of the scene. You're not the respected elder type, which of course not. I mean, that's 20, 30 years down the road. But, trying to deal with the fact that oh, well, I want to play with Art Blakey or somebody like that. But who's doing that? There's not a lot of musicians in that spot that they're training the younger generation, So it's an interesting time and dynamic of trying to figure out what to do. So I would say I've been in a bit of a rut, but like that. And compositionally, I've been in a little bit of a rut. I keep feeling I write the same song over and over again, but I don't stay in a rut for very long. My pragmatism pushes me back to it. And I don't like to sit around doing nothing. So But yeah, I mean, we all do it, man. It's just part of being human, I think. Let's see. All right, here's a question from Jack. Courtwright. Some people incorrectly perceive the trombone as a second-class frontline instrument compared to our buttoned counterparts. What things do you hear trombonists doing that might be perpetuating that? Not naming any names or anything like that, but, and it's not even like anyone professional that you would think of. It's not none of those people, because everyone's doing a lot of amazing things. But historically, when you just hear a trombone in general, especially maybe at the high school level or whatever, it can be a very displeasing sound. You know, something that I've heard more times than I care to is like, oh, I didn't know the trombone could sound like that. That's just like nice sounding, I think. You know, I think at one point people knew that that was the sound when Tommy Dorsey and Glenn Miller were leading bands, and you know, there was all those great sounds of people in the Duke and Count Basie bands. It kind of changed at some point to kind of like a circusy kind of instrument, you know, and people just stopped viewing it that way. I don't even know how or why it happened, other than like trombonists were kind of in the front, but I mean, it's sort of know what happened was the recording. If you want to look into it more historically deeper, it all shifted after World War II, and there was a recording ban, and that's what got all the vocalists, jazz vocalists, including people like Frank Sinatra, who was with Tommy Dorsey, into the star role, and kind of the trombone has never come back, you know, since then. But I think there's a misconception that trombone can't execute things cleanly, and there's a lot of players that I think perpetuate that myth a little bit, you know, in the way that they play, you know, and some people say, well, that's what a trombone should sound like. It should be slidey, or it should be whatever. But I think there's an equal number of people that are able to execute basically whatever you want put in front of them, and that the trombone can be a good foil for like tenor. There's a good thread about this. Michael Deese kind of posted about this on somebody else's thread. But I mean, it's true. I don't know. It's all the people that just, they want to shred like 7 saxophone band, or like, you know, two horns, you know. But some people are into trombone, and so it just depends, you know, if somebody is putting together their band and realize that they want a different voice, that like, so alto and trombone, or tenor and trombone, or trumpet and trombone is going to give you 2 different characters. And whether it's like some people just want alto and tenor sax because they want 2 people that can play really intensely and fast or whatever. I mean, it's true, trombone can't keep up with like constant 8th notes, 16th notes, whatever. So I don't think it's anything in particular that people are doing now. I think it's people not asserting themselves of like, hey, I can be a frontline instrument, I can play whatever you want, you know. I don't know. We got to keep doing our part. I think the trombonists would have to just kind of play, you know. You just kind of play and get out there as a leader, you know, and just show them what you got, because that's the only way it's going to happen. And we got to hire all those other people, and they'll see, oh yeah, maybe I need to have trombone in my band. Be indispensable, you know. I think it's the same for people that play like vibes, you know, like people don't think of vibes first, and they have to overcome that hurdle and be like, oh, I really want that person, I'll play vibes. Ashy Dubs says J.J. Johnson's a prime example of Chris trombone playing. Yes, he is. Blue Train is a prime example. That's not Curtis. That's Curtis on Blue Train, not J.J. Also, great trombone player. Taylor. Oh wait, Alistair, I missed yours. What are some skills that you recommend an amateur trombone player develop to get better? Being able to listen deeply and hear the how of how people play. The how and the why, you know, knowing why something sounds good, why you're drawn to it, how it's being played, and being able to mimic it, if as deeply and as specifically as you can. So don't underestimate that, and focus on going deep and not wide, because you can't know everything. It's just not going to be possible. You can't know every record, you can't know every transcription, you can't know every solo. You can only know what you know, and which is going to create a great musician from your experience that sounds like you. So, you know, use the history, but like just realize at some point you want to do your homework and know a lot of things, but like you can't know everything. You can't be the foremost expert on Jack Teagarden and Bird and Clifford Brown and John Coltrane and Duke Ellington. There's not enough time to absorb all of their discography. So be specific about what you like, what you want to learn, how you want to play. That's the best I can do. Develop that concept so you can hear when you're not living up to the standard of the players that you want to play like. That would be my recommendation there. Okay, let's see here. Vasily says, if you want to get better at trombone, are the following choices: scales, exercises, songs, listening, and transcribing. Which is the most important that you spend your time on if you have limited time of the choice? Okay, so the choices again are scales, exercises, songs, listening, and transcribing. Of those, I would spend my time transcribing, because you're going to work on technique, and you're going to work on your ears, and you're going to work on your concept all at the same time. And most likely, if you pick the right things, you're going to be challenging yourself constantly. And you're going to be listening, working on your concept. I keep coming back to it, but it's like you have to have a super strong concept, or you're not going to sound good. If you don't have a good sound concept, if you don't have a good articulation concept, if you don't have a good musical concept, there's no way for you to sound good, or to be good, or to be hireable, because you don't have a strong concept of what the trombone is supposed to sound like, how it fits into jazz, and how you are going to take that and make it your own, you know? So of those things, that's what I would say. Okay, I see a couple more questions here. Let's see. Taylor, yeah, here we go. Taylor says, when was the last time you dealt with some form of performance anxiety? Well, that's a good question. I mean, one that comes to mind straight away was like my Juilliard audition for my master's program. That was over 10 years ago now. Was it over 10 years ago? Yeah, it would have been 2009. So that was one. Whenever I play for my heroes, I kind of get performance anxiety. I used to get a lot of anxiety when I played for fellow trombonists too, like at ITF or at ATW or any of those events, Trombonanza in Argentina. But yeah, I don't anymore. I guess because like I like music that has flaws, and so if I expected myself to play perfectly every time, like I know I can't. And I know that I don't even enjoy that. I love the humanity. I love hearing somebody go for it. I love hearing Train like reaching. I love hearing Brecker doing the same thing, or like somebody trying something new. And so if I'm always sounding 100% perfect, that means I'm being really safe, you know, if I don't try to go for anything. And so at a certain point, you just have to be okay with sounding bad. And like I always say, like, you're always trying to get your worst day to be slightly better. So my worst day probably is a lot better than some other people's best day, only because I've been doing this for longer than them, you know, that playing jazz trombone. So the performance anxiety kind of goes away when you think about, it's just like this is exactly what it is, and it's not going to be anything other than what it is. And I've put in the time, or I didn't put in the time, but I can't change what I've done to prepare for this moment. Like, I can't go back, and it doesn't really matter, because it's like when you realize that no one thing is like a make or break in your career, you know, it's like it's a culmination of all the opportunities together, and building something slowly over the time. It's not about like one day, or this happens with artists on the label all the time, and it's really frustrating when they believe in their heart of hearts that it's like this one single or this one album is going to make or break them. It's like, we're not in the pop music field. We're not relying on hits. We're trying to build a career over time. And if you're going to build over time, that means that each thing builds on the last. And so when something doesn't go quite as viral as they want it to go, and they get upset, it's like, well, that means like you got to make something else that will capture the attention of your audience, or you need to reach out to a new audience that will like the music that you're giving out, putting out, you know. So I always try to take that 10,000 foot view, look at the long term, and when you do that, like, no little setback is going to make you upset. For example, you know, having performance anxiety about, am I going to play this tune? You know, whatever. But, you know, when I get around my elders or something, if Steve Teray, one of my teachers, walked in the room, I would get a little nervous, you know. That's for sure. I can't say that I'm like not nervous, but most of the time now, it's just kind of like, this is going to be what it is. I can't change, you know. I am who I am. I play how I play right now, today, you know, or tomorrow or whatever. So hope that helps. Okay, so how do you work on the more florid and fast stuff with multiple articulation? You practice it with the multiple articulation slow. So if I wanted to go like, I'll say the melody of like Eternal Triangle, right? Because that's kind of fast. But right? So I would say see how I'm doing the fast articulation but slow? Because that's how you get clean playing fast, is by playing slow what you're trying to play fast with the same thing. Because what most people do is they'll play it slow, but they'll play they'll switch back to single tongue. But you got to stick with the double tongue when you don't need it, if that makes sense. So when you're playing, so sometimes I'll play through like my scale exercises, like a major scale workout, in fourths, fifths, sixths, whatever. You see what I'm doing? Right? So I'm not just da 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 da. So you practice it that way. That's how you do it. Sorry, Tony. It's a long answer. Jared, I see your question. I'll come back to you. Here's one from DJ. He says, do you think younger musicians have issues with professionalism, like they've developed musically quicker than older people were able to at their given age, but they get too comfy and give bad vibes? Yes. I mean, generally, do I think that this happens? Yes. Yeah, you just get too eager if you've got a lot you want to share. So it's not everyone, and it's in certain situations. And I think it's just eager. They're just eager. I was eager too, You want to prove yourself. You want to get out there. You want to show people what you can do, But the most important thing, I think, if you want to be a person that gets called back for gigs and work, is to be cool and be a nice person. Read the context of the room, and be amiable to whatever's happening. Just be cool. That's the best way I can put it. I know it's not very specific, but yeah. And then when you're interacting with older musicians, it's important as an unknown person, I think, if you want to work, if you want to just establish yourself as like a young gun that's going to like do whatever, then that's fine. But if you want to work, then you got to be nice to those older people that control the gigs, that are contracting and that want to work with you, and that you're like inspiring to work with, because it's like, oh wow, you're 16 and you're doing a great job, and they want to take you under their wing. I would want that more than I would want to like prove myself. I mean, I don't know how I came off when I was that age. It could have been that way, but yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely true that musicians are developing like faster sooner, and I think that's just because of YouTube and being able to look things up, and great, more knowledge of the music and more access and all of that. So, okay. Have you heard of the concept of random practice? No. I don't do anything. I try not to do anything randomly, so I don't know if I would like that. Jared asks, what do you look for in student auditions and interviews for grad school? Well, that's a good question. So, as it happens, this year, Jack will be graduating. So, Jack is our studio TF, Jack Courtwright. So we will have an opening for our TF position in our studio. So what am I looking at for like that position in particular? So first off is someone who can play well, right? So it's I think about somebody who could, be a finalist in one of these jazz trombone competitions, because we want them to represent our studio well. We want them to have a strong knowledge of the music, have a strong knowledge of like what the music sounds like. Like if you don't want to play, improvised instrumental jazz music, like studying with me is probably not a good idea, because we're going to work on tunes and language and transcriptions and like pulling out your voice and like finding ways to make you. And if you don't want to do any of that, then it's not a good idea. So there's the playing piece, right? And then there's the interpersonal piece, like Jack and I have to work together on a bunch of things. And related to that is that at UNT in particular, there's a lot of teaching that goes into the person that's in that position. And even if you're accepted as a master's student and not as the TF, there's a lot of teaching opportunities out here. So for example, like DJ is coming back to school. He's going to be doing his master's in arranging. He's going to be arranging TF, right? Other ones like Jack and Jackson, Churchill is another student, is doing a lab band, conducting. So you got to also be able to teach. So, in those interviews, we ask about teaching experience. We ask about how do you feel about running an ensemble. We ask about how, what are you interested in teaching at all? It's a different experience than what I had and what I wanted. I had always taught, through high school and college until I moved to New York. So when I moved to New York and started at Juilliard, I stopped teaching to focus on school because I didn't want to teach outside of it. And also Juilliard didn't have any TA kind of thing. Like there was no grad students teaching anything, but at a school like UNT, that's part of it, part of that position. So there's those three pieces, being a great player, being able to represent the studio well, you're going to be out talking about the studio, you're going to be out with the ensembles, with the YouTubes, like leading, conducting, being able to arrange and doing all those things. It's going to be a person that's able to kind of, cover all those bases. All the TAs that we've had have done a little bit of writing, a little bit of arranging, a little bit of teaching, a lot of playing, and so those are the things that I look for, especially in a grad student, is somebody that wants to play the music that we're talking about here. They don't want to move to LA and be a film session musician exclusively, or they want to be an orchestral musician exclusively. Like, it's not a good fit. If you don't want to work on improvisation and your artistic voice as a master's student, then studying with me could be, maybe you wouldn't like it. I don't know. So those are some things. All right, let me keep going here and see what I'm missing. Jay Coop talking about live recordings. Yeah, they have the energy of the listeners is definitely powerful. Well, I got to go back. Oh, I'm missing a lot of things. Can you talk about jam session cultures as etiquette? Specifically, should you scout out before you play, and what should you have prepared? Yeah, so again, it's the same kind of thing, like be cool. Don't vibe people for their tune choice. Be ready to go, play whatever tune. Excuse me, it's inevitable that something's going to come up that you don't know. Just sit down, wait till the next tune that you do know. Go to the session a couple times before you ask to sit in. Get to know the musicians, get to know the tunes that they play. Just see what they're playing. Just scope out the scene before you just show up and play, and just have a good knowledge of tunes. Know all the ones that you think people might call when you find something. I know a lot of people that keep lists on their phone of tunes that people call that they don't know. Certain people just like to vibe people for not knowing tunes. This is a funny story. One time there was a guy, I'm not naming any names here, but there was a guy who called me and a couple of guys that I play with a lot for a gig, and this guy was the leader, and he was trying to be hip and call some tunes that he thought we didn't know, and turns out we knew those tunes and he didn't know the tunes. So that happens sometimes, so watch out for people like that. But you should just have anything prepared, tunes that you know in your area get called. Ask your friends, go hang out at the session, write down the tunes, and just be generally cool. Yeah, DJ's doing his master's. I don't know if I said it wrong. Sorry. What's up, Chuck? What's up, Peter? A lot of people joining here. Hope everybody's doing good. I got a couple more questions to get to today before we wrap it up. Let's see. Random practice. Okay, here we go. Jack says, Parker Brothers has tasked you with designing the new jazz trombone themed Monopoly. What are the $350 and $400 properties named for? What crime is cited on the card that sends you to jail? Ooh, man, this is a good point. This is a funny question. I don't know if I can answer it right now. I feel like I should think about this. So by 350 and 400, you mean Boardwalk and Park Place, is that right, Jack? I think that's right. So would these be people? I guess, yeah, they'd be players. I mean, for me, I guess it would be J.J. Johnson and Curtis Fuller if I had to pick two players to put there. The crime would be emptying your spit valve on somebody and getting spit on them. Something like that. It's a very specific, funny question. Thank you, Jack. And I guess, Jared, that you have to come on my live stream and ask snarky questions. I'm just kidding. Oh, I see. Now DJ and Peter are arguing about going back to school for a DMA. Very nice. You're welcome, Ord. Taylor says, on the topic of nerves, would you say in your experience you've used nerves to help you as a confidence booster? How has being nervous helped you be more in the moment of the music of what you play? If I used them, I think they're just kind of there, and I just have to kind of push past them, really. I guess one thing that I heard somebody say one time that I thought was really poignant is that, being nervous about something means like you care about it, So if I'm nervous about it, I know that it's like something that I care about. And I'm just saying like, oh, I care about this, that's good to know, like I want to do a good job. So that's how I think about it. If I'm nervous, that means like, just like I said, like, if Ron Carter walked in and I'm playing, I want to play well. I want to do a good job. I want to show, who I am, regardless of what he thinks, I want to show my best self. I don't know if it's really helped me be more in the moment necessarily. I think it does kind of get in the way. So I would rather not be nervous than to be nervous. Vasily says, my main weakness is speed in playing notes and agility in moving the slide back and forth. I'm good at sound quality. What should I do to get very good at speed? Well, you might have to check out a different slide technique than you might be using right now. I like to think about, I can't get fully into this right now. It would take too long and not enough people are interested. But you want to think about like all the 4 pieces of movement, right, in your arm. So we have the fingers and the wrist, and then we have the elbow, and then we have the shoulder, right? You want to move the most with your fingers and the least with your shoulders, and somewhere in between for the other things here. So I use like a throw and a catch motion with my slide. If you look at JJ, if you look at Curtis, I look at so many people, Michael Dees, they all do this kind of throw and catch, right? And so if you're using your whole arm, it might be a little too slow. So you might want to look, at your ability to move the slide, because that's going to be how you can actually move more quickly, right? To play more cleanly and to improve your agility. So I would work on music that helps you attack that. So one thing that requires a good amount of agility would be to open up the Arbin's book to characteristic study number 1 and play that up to the key change, just the B flat major part, and memorize it. It goes. I'm not going to sing the whole thing, but it focuses on going through the register. It's a lot of quick notes. It's a lot of fast, slide motion. So that's what I would do. If you want to dig into it more, we probably have to have a lesson. I can't really describe it all super clearly right at this very moment. But yeah, so it is what it is. Hopefully that gets you on the right track. So stay longer, move faster is the adage for clean slide technique. Stay longer, move faster, right? So you want that slide to be super exact, super crisp, but nice and relaxed. Here's a good question to wrap up the week here. DJ asked me, how much would I have to pay you to blow 2 courses on aggro? So for those of you that don't know, let me make sure I get this right. I know it's a combination of Cherokee and Giant Steps. One is in one key and one is in a different key. I think it's in B and then it goes to Giant Steps on the bridge, or is it just Cherokee in B? I forget. It's some kind of crazy hard combination of those 2 things, and I think it's fast too. I don't know. You probably couldn't pay me enough, DJ, to blow on something like that. It just sounds like pain, super pain. Brian says, do you think there's a downside in playing the Arbin's exercises up a half step? There's no downside. Play them in all the keys you want. You gotta work out every note on the trombone. Yeah, okay, so I was right. It's Cherokee in B, and then the bridge is Giant Steps in C. So both tunes up a half step. DJ says it's fun. Maybe it is fun. I've never done it. So anyway, there's no downside to playing things in other keys, so don't hesitate to do that. But I got to run. Thanks all for hanging today, and like I said, we're gonna have a special guest on next week, which is gonna be super fun. We're gonna talk a little bit about Jazz Trombone Day 2021, which is gonna be super fun and awesome, and everybody should come. And it'll be in person at UNT if you're able to get to Texas, so that's going to be really great. But I'll talk more about that next week. For now, I'm going to sign off and catch you all on next week. Hope everybody has a great weekend. Again, if you're in Massachusetts this weekend, I'm playing tomorrow in Rockport with Alexa Tarantino. So that should be a fun one if you're in the area. All right, have a great weekend, and I'll catch you all next time.